This is a screenshot video of the New York State court system, and I know that the lettering is a little bit small, at least it is for my old eyes as I look at it, but it I think captures what we need to be looking at, uh, and it does it, I think, without unnecessary complications if you don't worry too much about the arrows. I think I can walk you through this in a way that makes sense. So, uh, what's located then on this court system chart that we're going to be talking about are the courts in New York State. And like the federal courts, we could view these courts as a pyramid. And as a matter of fact, it looks like one if we look at the chart. And at that lower level, uh, if I can point to it here, uh, the first uh, three courts: New York City Civil Court, New York City Criminal Court, and District Courts are courts located in New York City or for District Courts, Long Island. And what I'm going to do at this point is make a judgment call and say that we're not going to talk about these courts. The rest of the state uh, really is what I'm more concerned about since we're located here in Buffalo, New York. And if anyone goes into a career in the law who might be taking this course, it's more likely that they'll be outside Western. Well, I'm sorry, they won't be in the New York City and Long Island area. And to develop the criminal court system, at least at this level, district court, New York City criminal court, and civil court would be more than I think is necessary. And having said that, I will tell you that my first job out of law school was in New York City, so maybe I just disproved what I said. But in any event, moving on, we've got city court, town courts, and village courts. And the way it works, just like where do you live? I think this is helpful. So I suspect most of us live in Erie County, and if you live in Erie County, you live in either a city or a town. So, for example, I live in Erie County and I live in the city of Buffalo. Some people live in Erie County and in the town of, let's say, Amherst. If you live in a town, you may also live in a village. That's not necessarily the case, but it can be the case. So maybe our person we're thinking about, maybe it's you. You live in Erie County, you live in the inside Erie County in the town of Amherst, and where you live in the town of Amherst is also part of the village of Williamsville. Now, every city, and again, we've moved our friends in New York City out of the picture. Every city in New York has a city court: Buffalo City Court, Lackawanna City Court, Lockport City Court, Niagara Falls City Court, to name a few. Right? Every town has a town court. So there's the Amherst Town Court, the Lancaster Town Court, uh, by way of example. Not all villages, but some villages, and it really depends how the village government has made the call uh, as to whether it wants to have its stuff handled in town court or whether it wants to have a separate village court. But for example, in town of Amherst, there's a village court of Williamsville. Uh, I noticed that back in the day, there used to be in the town of Cheektowaga, the village court of Sloan, but the village court of Sloan abandoned its village court system, so everything there is now handled in the town court of Cheektowaga. And I'm going to make another judgment call here when we're talking about civil cases. What I'm going to say to you is that as important as civil cases to the litigants may be in city court, town court, or village court, and this would be particularly true, for example, if it was a landlord tenant eviction proceeding, if in our hypothetical law firm we're doing a lot of civil litigation, we're not going to be spending much time in these courts unless we, say, represent a developer who's doing a lot of landlord-tenant evictions, uh, because the monetary jurisdiction of these courts is limited. And so what I'm telling you is that where we're probably going to be spending our time if we're engaged in representing clients in civil litigation would be either state Supreme Court, or if we had a special kind of representation, we might be in family court. In other words, if we had a family law practice. And I'll be talking a little bit more about family court in just a bit. Uh, and again, continuing with the civil practice, we certainly might be doing work in surrogates court. That's where estates get administered, but there's very few contested trials in surrogates court. I've had a couple, in other words, where someone has claimed that the person who made a will and then who's died wasn't of sound mind when they made the will. But in court, in court of claims is where we're suing the state or one of its agencies for money. But divorce, breach of contract, property disputes, by way of example, personal injury cases in New York State are going to be handled by Supreme Court. Indeed, I'm going to just click this. By the way, this nifty little presentation is given to us by our friends in Cattaraugus County. I thought they just did a nice, clean way of looking at this. But what they tell us quite accurately is Supreme Court has unlimited jurisdiction and generally hears civil cases beyond the monetary limits of the lower court. And the types of cases, malpractice, negligence actions, which would include personal injury, vehicular accidents, divorce, separation and annulment proceedings are also handled in Supreme Court. So I'm flipping back to the court system. So we have our, again, the civil system. When I say civil system, civil cases, civil lawsuits, plaintiff versus defendant for divorce or to recover money based on a claim of negligence in an automobile accident. That case is likely going to be in Supreme Court. Let me then backtrack here and talk about criminal cases. And again, the way I like to get to this material is just think, well, if we had a hypothetical law firm and we were doing this kind of work, where would our lawyers be hanging out if we were doing, litigation practice? If we had a criminal defense firm, then we're going to have a big difference than in a law firm that just does civil litigation. We're going to be in city court, town court, and possibly, if there is one, village court a lot, because most of our criminal cases, even the very serious ones in New York State, begin in city court or town court and village court. Just will depend upon the location where the crime was committed. So, by way of example, a person who's accused of murdering the shoppers at the Tops store in Buffalo last spring, his case or the case against him actually began in Buffalo City Court. So we would be doing a lot of work at these three levels. Some of the cases that we would be handling in the criminal area wouldn't go beyond these three levels because they are what we call misdemeanor or violation cases. Shoplifting comes to mind. Our client is accused of, I don't know if there's a retail store in downtown Buffalo you can steal from anymore, but our client is accused of taking an item worth $50 from a retail store in downtown Buffalo. Our client's case is going to go to Buffalo City Court, and it will stay there until it's dismissed or our client pleads guilty or stands trial and is found guilty, or stands trial and is found not guilty. What happens with the criminal cases, the more serious ones, they then go to either county court And county court doesn't do much civil stuff. That's why I didn't talk about it. County court or state Supreme Court, and that's going to be an administrative decision. I was just yesterday looking at the paper and a cold case murder from I think 1978 just went on trial or is just concluding actually in Erie County, and the case was assigned to Erie County Court Judge DiTilio. However, some of the criminal cases will be assigned to state Supreme Court judges who are then have been assigned to Erie County by way of example. So if we're in a criminal defense practice, we'll be city, town, and village court. We'll be spending then time in county court, and we'll be spending time in state Supreme Court. So that gives us a little bit of an overview for civil and criminal cases in New York State and how they work through these first two levels. What we then have on the list is appellate division, and the Supreme Court in New York has what is known as an appellate division, and appeals from these courts that I'm scrolling across, family, county, surrogate, Supreme Court, and Court of Claims, go to the appellate division of state Supreme Court. And the appellate division of state Supreme Court is divided into different numbered departments. First and second departments are downstate. The third department, which sits in Albany, kind of takes into account the eastern part of the state. And in the western part of the state, which certainly includes Buffalo, we are in the fourth department. The fourth department sits or is headquartered in Rochester. The reason it's Rochester rather than Buffalo, it's a more centrally located location for the people, the lawyers who are going to be appearing in court. So we've got an appeal in the fourth department. We've got to get up early that morning and drive to Rochester. Our appeals then are taken to one of these four appellate division departments, as I've said. So let's say we've got a criminal case where our client's been convicted in Erie County Court. The appeal will go up to the appellate division, fourth department. Now, in both civil and criminal cases, the court of last resort, which sits in the state capitol in Albany, is the Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals is not unlike the U.S. Supreme Court. There is a tremendous number of cases that potentially head its way, and the Court of Appeals has a considerable amount of discretion as to the cases it will actually handle and the ones that it won't. So it's very difficult to get full consideration of a case before the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals kind of uses the same general standard of measurement as does the U.S. Supreme Court. It'll look to see is there disagreement on this particular issue of law in cases, lower court cases, or is it a case of significant importance, sort of first time presented. I know that a friend of mine, a lawyer friend of mine, was involved in a case not so long ago in the Court of Appeals, which involved a question in a civil case of whether it was proper to put a GPS tracker on a public employee's car and then to terminate him on the ground that he was spending time with his girlfriend rather than making his rounds. And the GPS was really technology had not gotten to the court before, so the Court of Appeals decided, I guess then, that would be a good case for it to consider. So this will conclude our overview of the New York State court system. Thank you.